welcome to another episode of Tesseract Talks, the place where we put the spotlight on tech trends, startups, and VCs. I'm your host, Marko, the founder and CEO of Tesseract Analytics, and it is my pleasure today to have Ludovic Leforestier as our guest. He's the analyst relations expert, founder at Starsight Communications, and both board member and co-founder at IIAR. Ludovic, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Pleased to meet you today. Yeah, I'll be with you.
Likewise. Let's start by you telling us about your career background from your early roles to then founding IIAR and Starsight Communications.
Right. Well, that's interesting. I started in sales in storage of all things. So it was exciting back then. And then I ended up by accident almost doing analyst relations. Nobody knew what it was back then, and I was working for a storage company. And fast forward to then me working at IBM later on, we decided to found the IAR, the Institute for Industry Analyst Relations, which later we called the Institute for Influencers and Analyst Relations, because nobody knew about analyst relations. So we thought we found the IAR. That's been something like 20 years ago. If we fast forward now, it's extraordinary, because most people know what analyst relations is in our restricted field. So I think, credit us or not, we've done a good job at explaining what analyst relations is, but in our narrow field of technology and technology communications and marketing. So outside of it, not everybody understands what analyst relations is. So then I went on working for other blue chip companies like Oracle. I run analyst relations for a consulting company called Bearing Point. I started another AR department for Criteo, which is advertising technology. And then 4 years ago, we founded Starsight because we felt that there was space for a dedicated agency. And then we're now the largest European agency called Starsight, delivering analyst relations for mostly European clients, but not only.
Amazing journey so far. And I've worked in the past at one of the largest tech analyst companies, IDC. So I'm very familiar with what you do, and I understand the value of analyst relations. But
Yeah.
I think it would be great if you would perhaps explain for the audience, for the listeners, what is the analyst relation role, and also what type of companies should have a dedicated AR role? Is it only for large enterprises or also startups?
Right. So what analyst relations is, it's analyst relations manage the relationships between industry analysts and technology vendors and service providers. So in short, what we do, we help both very small startups. We work with startups with tens of employees up to very, very large enterprises to help them managing that relationship. It needs to be a dedicated function because analyst relations bridges the gap between that extremely important and influential audience called the industry analyst, including Gartner, Forrester, IDC, and all the others who are extremely important. And it's a complex landscape to navigate. You have new people coming up all the time, such as HFS, Constellation, Futurum, and loads of very small dedicated firms like in Europe. We have PAC, we have a lot of other firms like that. We have Fosway in HR, for instance, we have ABR Research. There are tons and tons of firms. And our goal is to make sure that we help all those vendors to be ready to interact with them. Usually there's only one chance to make a first impression. And if you mess that up, then you don't speak to the analyst for another year. And although the ultimate goal might be to be in a Gartner Magic Quadrant, it's not the only thing that you can achieve. You can also test your messaging. You can only develop a new way to talk to new audience, moderate customer advisory boards, create collateral, get more traction for your event. So analysts can do a huge variety of things if you have the keys to know how to speak to them, if you know how to engage with them, and if you are really, really well prepped to engage with them. It's not at all like talking to a client. It's not at all talking like talking to a partner or talking to media. It's very, very different. They have extremely different needs. They need deeper information, different cadence. And that's what we are. We help those guys managing the relationship. We do it all for them, and we also keep them safe in many ways. But we also provide insight back into those firms. So For a startup, it's really, really important to be in front of analysts because they can create a lot of awareness. If you're in Gartner Cool Vendor, it can unlock things. It can help you raising money in a funding round. For middle companies, it can make a huge difference in how you fine tune your positioning because you'll find that when you have smart startups, they have usually one trick pony, but as company develop, they're not sure which categories to play in, new categories, how to work on that. And that's really, really difficult. So analysts are fantastic, fantastic sounding board who can help refine and provide insights. So we use analysts a lot for strategic work, and we work with C-level to make sure that the companies are positioning themselves correctly.
Amazing. And you've already touched upon this a bit, but can you tell us what are some of the best practices or maybe recommendations for early stage startups on how early and how often they should engage with analyst companies? Is it like as soon as you have MVP, go start reaching out or wait for some certain traction? Or like when is the right time?
It's kind of funny because when I talk to my clients, they usually say, "We wish we would have started earlier with you." But then they're a bit afraid to engage at the beginning. They say, "Oh, we're not sure we're ready." Actually, this is the time they need to engage with analysts because if you don't know which category you're playing in, if you don't know what is your differentiation, your USP, if you don't know how to prove that you're successful, then that's when you need a bit of practice in doing that. Because if you don't do that with analysts, you won't be able to do that with the rest of the market.
Okay, sounds. And is it like, let's say I'm your client, I'm the startup, and I had a talk with Gartner or IDC. Do we engage once a year, or will it depend on the size, the complexity? What's the usual practice? How often we would talk to the analyst, or we wait for some more major update from our side?
It really depends on the size of the client, right? So the I'd say the limiting factor, or we adapt, right? But usually the main factor is the bandwidth. Do you have enough capacity to develop content because it's specific content? And do you have enough time? So very often in small startup, we work with a CEO and maybe a person helping with decks. But that is clearly not scalable for larger firms, right? Because you can't have two CEOs of company usually. So for those firms, we might engage one or twice a month or three times a month. So we might deliver 2 or 3 briefings a month. Outbound, right? So we have more inbound interaction with analysts because we take away a lot of the complexity and we come only with interaction that matters. But for larger firms, you're talking about a much busier program because we would work with product marketing, we would work with greater marketing, we would work with a lot more constituents.
Okay. And we keep on hearing almost on a daily basis now with the rise of AI, agentic AI solutions that industry is changing. And I'm sure the analyst and tech analyst companies will be affected in a same or similar way. What trends are you seeing with big analyst firms? And will it affect the way companies are engaging with them?
AI is really interesting, right? I've long thought that the industry analyst model is ripe for disruption or reinvention. We used to be in a media industry. An analyst used to make a lot of money producing research, a bit like academic research, and selling it many times. It's great, right? It's like an artist, you're the Marko the singer, and then you're selling you're cutting a CD and you're selling hundreds of thousands of copies. The average price of the CD is not very high, but you're selling millions of them because you're very successful. Now that's one media model. That aspect of a media model is slowly going away. In media purely, the bulk of the revenue is coming from advertising. In music, the bulk of the revenue is coming from what I would say experience. And I think for analysts, it's the same. People will not want to be buying research solely. Research still needs to be there for having credibility, for having something to talk about. So you do need some corpus of knowledge. How is it gathered? Different ways, but pure academic type research is only one thing, but it needs to be sort of reviewed, it needs to be serious, it needs to be validated, and it needs to be forward-looking. Some of the firms have forgotten about it. They've forgotten about editorial independence. They've forgotten about surprising trends, about forecasting, about forward looking, and they produce fairly bland and dull research. I think that model is gone. They need to transform that in experiences, and what experiences look like might be different. They might be like big concerts where artists make a lot of money, Gartner Symposium and that kind of events. It might be more curated smaller events, like the events that Constellation runs with clients, or HFS as well. They do design sessions. There might be one-to-one interactions, which we call inquiries, or there might be something else to be invented. But the model is changing slowly. And the problem with that is you made a lot of money creating content once and then selling it many times, and then you cannot scale an analyst time. So what do? Where do you get your margin back? And no one's really got the answer to that. Problem you have there is the minute clients start to think about, well, why do I buy research when I can ask that to ChatGPT? You have a problem. And this is where we are now. I believe that our job is all about human connections and relationships. And AI is not going to take away from that. That's the good news.
I mean, that's a good news, and I think that's a great note to end our episode. Thank you so much, Ludovic, for coming to the show and sharing these valuable insights. I do hope that we'll see you in future on another episode, or perhaps we can meet up here in person as we're both in London.
That would be lovely to have. I'm always up for a beer. Thank you, Marko.
Great. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.